Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the Fantastic Four First Steps. This Fantastic Four movie sort of starts in the same way the James Gunn Superman starts, where it's been 4 years instead of 3 years for Superman. We get 4 years Fantastic Four, I guess, thematic appropriate. We're just thrown into, there's no previous movie or several movies or cartoon show or what, a TV show or whatever. It's just like you're in it. It's like you, much like James Gunn Superman, it's like you picked off a random issue off the rack and started reading and are sort of compelled by it, despite the fact that you don't know what happened before in continuity. Almost like someone sort of tipped them off on this is the new way you make comic book movies now, and or they kind of know because of the superhero fatigue, you kind of got to pick a new structure. And I guess this is the new structure, baby. I think both Fantastic Four and the Superman movie are reactions to superhero fatigue, where the superhero genre is now, and sort of what to do with it, and, can it keep going, and how will it keep going. And I think they both sort of figured out a new way of doing it, of just like Fantastic Four is already established, then you get into the Galactus stuff. This also might be because the Galactus or Fantastic Four 48, 49, and 50. I know people have all sorts of fun names for them now, but to me, that's how I refer to it. And obviously they want to cut to that, and that's the cool story. I get that. I think it really works, but I think one of the things about this story, what's different about Fantastic Four sci-fi stories, there's a lot of different Fantastic Four stories, but like this Galactus story in particular, and I would say some other of the Jack Kirby space things, because that's what we're doing here, those are not as about the character as Marvel is used to. Most of them, starting with the first Iron Man, are far more about personality. James Gunn's Guardians is as well. Doctor Strange used the Iron Man formula very well. We saw that with everything from Captain America to Thor to, they're very personality based as a franchise. Not every one, I'm sure someone will give an exception and so forth. But I do think Fantastic Four, I re-looked at 48, 49, and 50. That's not really, Reed Richards' existentialism isn't why Galactus showed up, basically. It feels like a space story that they are put in, but that space story, I guess, are not as centered on their personalities, but their personalities weave through it, which is a different way of writing things, because with Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, that is the focus, is Robert Downey Jr.'s personality, and that's why you love these people. You love their personalities, you love who they are. And that almost is like the reverse of what Marvel does, but I think also sort of what the MCU has always done is take these characters and find the best way to sort of adapt them, and those other ways worked out real good, but it wasn't really going to work with Fantastic Four, and it shows kind of more malleable in understanding the right way to adapt their characters. It sort of reminds me of when they're more promising and stuff, but they're able to get this to work in this current age, particularly with Matt Shakman. And I think this film, ends up, and we all thought it would, but it does end up being probably, at least for now, the best Fantastic Four movie. Fantastic Four has been around for a long time, for 4 years, we assume is the 60s. People keep saying they don't mention what year it is, but I feel like they don't need to say that. Suddenly, we find out that Sue is pregnant with Franklin Richards. If you read the comics, you know how big of a deal that is. Galactus, or Silver Surfer, shows up as Galactus' herald, shows that Galactus is coming. The Fantastic Four try to stop Galactus until they find out Galactus wants their son because of the cosmic powers he has, as they try to find a way to save the Earth as well as save their son and make sure everything is okay in the process. I do think this film's 60s setting is aesthetically really cool. Everything's like very pop 60s. It's like, I get the Fantastic Four, although they existed, continuously through many decades, it seems like people have a fixation on them in the 60s, but that is where they first started, before Spider-Man even, and kicking off the Marvel Age and all that. So it does feel like people, particularly if you're doing a Jack Kirby story as well, which this is, and this film has a lot of tributes to Jack Kirby in it, that you'd want to do this kind of era. And it does feel like weird to just do like a modern Fantastic Four. I sort of get the motivation behind it. And I like aesthetically to a point. However, this film does something that it does a few things that are kind of more for modern audiences, which I think the previous, at least 20th Century Fox Fantastic Fours, let me say it that way, did, which they very much wanted to be modern. And this does it in sort of a sneaky way, even though it's sort of in the past. I wouldn't say sneaky, but you kind of have to know. One is how it was shot. It very much does this desaturation thing. I never understand doing desaturation in the past. I get that it's the past. I can see that it is the 60s. That is not the time that I am in right now. So I don't need you to desaturate it, because it's always like this weird cinematography theory thing where they're like, oh no, but just so you know, it's like the past. I'm like, I already fucking know that, dude. Like, why do we, I think the theory of that is garbage. Stop desaturating things. They sort of desaturate stuff, but then make the colors pop with the Fantastic Four a bit. But I'm like, you could have just shot this like a 60s thing, or like, you know, kind of like different and stuff. But the desaturation thing, I don't know if it's like the studio's demand, like, what if people think the past is too real or something? I don't know. I don't think it's that deep, but I think it's if you're doing cinematography theory-wise or color correction theory, and what you're saying to the story and saying to the audience, I think it's a really poor lesson and a poor theory in itself, and I really wish people would stop it. As an aesthetic thing, I just didn't particularly like how they desaturated to a certain point. I'm like, I didn't need that whatsoever. The other thing is, I get that this is a tribute to Jack Kirby, and I think Jack Kirby's one of the greatest comic minds and creative minds of our times. And he deserves to have a movie that's more tribute to him than obviously all the Stan Lee cameos. I know Jack Kirby couldn't do cameos and probably wouldn't because he's cool and stuff. But when you go into space, it sort of becomes more Christopher Nolan than it becomes Jack Kirby. And I found that to be a little typical. I actually thought it worked and was cool, and was thinking about, like, I remember a lot of that part. And I do actually like it. It just didn't stand out. It just felt like they're just sort of doing what's expected of a movie in 2025 to show space. And of course, they're influenced by Interstellar. So I don't like Interstellar as much as everybody else. And I thought that aesthetically, like, I didn't think that worked. I would have liked them to, you know, maybe have more Kirby stuff in space. I thought that would have been more interesting than like Christopher Nolan stuff. I'm like, I thought that was actually kind of my main letdowns for those two things. So you're going to do Kirby, show me the cool like pop art space stuff, like all the crazy stuff going on. And then it's like, hey, remember Interstellar? And I'm pretty sure Jack Kirby didn't see that movie. So I don't really I didn't really understand artistically why you're doing it, other than to be like, hey, we're a blockbuster in 2025, which I also didn't like the cinematography choice there. However, I like the cast. I like Pedro Pascal's Reed. His portrayal of him as a bookish, kind of quiet scientist who can't really handle stuff, and you know, his wife is Sue Storm is sort of taking on the lead that they've been kind of thrust upon, and he has a certain amount of guilt because of what happened, which I kind of actually sort of like that in it. I thought that worked. I like Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. He didn't really get to do as much hothead stuff, and because this is a big thing of the Galactus storyline, I noticed they do cut out like Johnny's like discovering how awesome space is. We seem to always cut that in any time they adapt this. But and I like Ebon Moss-Bachrach as the Thing. I kind of always imagined him with an even thicker New York accent, but to be honest, I can't think of anyone else who could possibly play him other than, you know, I guess the Bowery Boys in the 30s or something. And he didn't make enough references to the guys in Yancey Street. That was the other, like, I need like 20 references. Like, well, the boys in Yancey Street would give that guy a big punch in and stuff. I like the 60s thing. I like how it worked. And Vanessa Kirby was really great. You can tell, I know she was cast to be a real anchor in the MCU and stuff, but like, I think she's really good at Sue Storm. And also good at, like, I think Sue Storm's an interesting character in that you can I know she's the Invisible Woman, but you can sort of forget about her and sometimes, but not realize everything she's doing. But then she can like surprise everyone. I liked who's speaking the UN and everything. She's a good diplomat. I really liked what Vanessa Kirby did in this, and I even like Galactus and all that stuff. You know, there's been a lot of talk of how it was cut down. It feels like it could have been longer. That never really bothered me. I don't really need an extra scene with Paul Walter Hauser's Mole Man explaining like their relationship with Mole Man. First of all, I already know they have a relationship with Mole Man, so I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't need that stuff handed to me, and I get that like everything needs a compendium and like a extra, you know, Disney Plus thing, but I think it's sort of the idea that both this and Superman sort of reject that. I understand maybe this was edited in a way and they're sort of just like luckily taking advantage of a new trend that just started 2 weeks before, but I do think it sort of works within that, and I don't need all those extra scenes. Yeah, I think it sucks that John Malkovich was cut out of this. That's my bigger issue with it. You could have just let that guy have his few scenes or whatever. But I think it brazenly works a lot better. A lot of these MCU movies, like the last two, we had Captain America and Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts felt like something, you know, the same thing I saw before, but like, you know, just because your chili has more beans in it doesn't mean it's not chili. And Brave New World, like, didn't really work as well and like didn't really feel like the Marvel that, I don't know, it didn't feel like it took advantage of what made Marvel special and like almost like messed up the whole thing. But they both felt really too long and not different enough, and kind of one failing at being a Marvel movie and one just being sort of average. And this feels like a different thing. You know, it feels like you're thrown into it. It doesn't feel like I'm missing anything because we all miss something. And that feels like a more even playing field. I don't really think it was like undercooked or anything like that. I don't mind when a movie cuts out a bunch of stuff, but I thought it worked within what you want from a Fantastic Four movie in the MCU, in the 60s, all these stuff. I liked it in its different worlds and stuff. I got to see this with my dad. I don't get to see superhero movies with him a lot. We saw it the first night. It was really cool in this theater in Virginia Beach. We were on vacation and stuff, but that was really special to me, and he liked it. But I think this was a good movie. I like how it leans so much in the cosmic stuff. There are certain things like Natasha Lyonne's character. Like, you're not going to have the Thing's blind girlfriend explain to the Silver Surfer how art's really cool and you shouldn't kill the universe and stuff. Then, like, what was the purpose of her in this? Like, I didn't really get that. Like, to acknowledge that he's Jewish or something. Like, I didn't really understand that. That's the only character I was a little lost. I'm like, well, typically you're supposed to have this character for this, but in this they like sort of just make the Silver Surfer feel bad and she like flies away and stuff. And I like the Silver Surfer parts. It was very brief, but I thought it mostly worked. I'm kind of happy with this. I think there should be a Fantastic Four Kirby movie that really goes for it in the visual effects in really crazy different ways, and maybe try to do it in the way his drawings actually are. One of the things I liked about Thor Ragnarok is it really went into that Kirby style. I wasn't a big WandaVision fan. I like this a lot, actually. I liked everything with Franklin. I think in some cases there is too much going on, but I really don't mind a movie that has too much going on that ends within a certain time. I like shorter movies, and I like when movies condense things and stuff. So I was okay with this. I don't think it's as good as Superman. They sort of figured out a different way to do some of these movies, which makes me feel better about the Marvel movies, because I think I gave sort of a passive okay to Brave New World, saying like I compared it to, you know, Moonraker or whatever. And this, and Thunderbolts, I didn't feel was that different, but this I do feel is different, and I really liked it. I feel much happier about superhero movies than I've had through the rest of this year. And I think it's because it was able to rethink of what to do with them, much like how James Gunn had to for Superman. You can tell they're both studios who are like, hey, we should actually nail this with both of these because it's a little embarrassing. It's either been so long, or in Marvel's case, never been a really great Fantastic Four movie. Is it better than the first Incredibles? No, if you need me to say that or something. But I think it's trying to be a good Fantastic Four cosmic movie. That's its real goal. Its goal is not just really introducing the Fantastic Four, which is a very different thing for an origin film. It's interesting that these films are sort of taking on more and more. Maybe it's for cinematic universes, things we can tell. You know, I'd be curious in 10 years if the choices they made in this film lead to other things. But and maybe you'll be like, oh man, that really fucked everything up. But as for this movie as it is right now, I like this film. It was a fun movie. I had a good time with it. I thought it captured the Fantastic Four in the best way in the modern era. I wish it had been a little more imaginative from one of the more imaginative comic artists of all time that you're paying tribute to. I liked all the tributes. The New York of the 60s was so good. I was convinced for a couple days that there was a theater in the Times Square sequence that was a real theater that was there. I looked it up, it wasn't, but you got me, guys. And I literally look that crap up all the time because I'm a dork. But I think this was a good way to introduce the Fantastic Four to modern audiences, and is probably the first time I've seen modern audiences and critics and comics fans be like, yippee, Fantastic Four. I'm really curious what they will do next with this property and what the ideas are for it. I'm think this will probably be like the Captain America franchise where they'll have to get used to a new world and stuff like that. But I think there's a lot you can do with the Fantastic Four, particularly with the cosmic stuff. And that really worked. I really wouldn't mind a bunch of Fantastic Four cosmic movies. And I think, maybe take advantage of more of the Fantastic Voyage and less of the Interstellar. But we'll see what happens. I'm excited. I'm into this. I like Johnny's sort of discovery with her and stuff, which I guess sort of, I don't know. Their difference of moving things sort of made sense to me and made it work and all that stuff. It very much plays off of the feeling of almost, I did a throwback to Justice League New Frontier, but I do feel like that kind of optimism of the Kennedy years of the early 60s was very much in this, even though I guess this would be post when Kennedy died. It very much insinuates Nixon is still president, which that sucks. You can go to space and all these powers and Nixon's still president, but whatever. I think this is, Hollywood makes a good Fantastic Four movie. I think they've succeeded in that. Now I hope we go to make even crazier and more interesting Fantastic Four movies than even this, and showcase why the first family of Marvel is so influential and so important. And I think we sort of got that. We got that more so in this than we've ever got it cinematically. And I really like that about it. But I also thought it worked very well as a movie. And clearly First Steps is not about them being their first movie, but probably about the baby. But that's just my theory. But anyway, I really quite like this film. I was happy about it. I want to see it again. I have thought about it a lot since. Its comparison to Superman will be there because of its being so close together with it. But I think the narrative choices they made worked out in this sort of interesting new age of superhero movies where it feels like you can just pick them up and figure out everything right away. I think that's actually a good thing for superhero movies, and it actually worked out this time for the Fantastic Four. I hope it works out for the next movie that chooses to do it as well. So if you've seen the Fantastic Four First Steps and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.